Dan Balz from the Washington Post is out with a story, sort of the postmortem on why the Democrats lost. And the headline is "Economy and Discontent Were Too Much for Harris to Overcome," advisors say. But here's the lead of Dan's story. It says senior officials with Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign say her defeat stemmed primarily from dissatisfaction among voters about the overall direction of the country and discontent over inflation and the economy, arguing that those headwinds proved too strong for Harris to overcome in her sprint to Election Day. What's missing in that? That she was a horrible, horrible candidate. The story is devoid of the reality of her as a candidate. She sucked in 2019 when she ran, and she sucked this time. All right, guys, good Thursday to you. As you know, we're on a glide path to the weekend. I'm excited. I think we're finally at the point where we can enjoy weekends a little. I expect more nominations to be coming. It's just that's where we are. I've got so much to get to with our all-star panel today. I mean, a lot. I've so much written down. I don't know that I'm even gonna have close to time for it. So this is going to be a great show. We're going to get some amazing perspective that you don't get anywhere else. You can tell I'm all jacked up. Maybe you are too. Maybe you start your morning off with a cup of coffee or kick it in. I'm telling you, wired to fish, baby. This is where it's at. A lot of people talk about how they want a product that's more consistent with their values. Well, this is the great thing about wired to fish coffee. It's both. It's a great coffee. You got the Arabica beans, right? From from Guatemala and Mexico. Great taste, great coffee. But it's also consistent with your values. And I hate that all these people who I rag on, I won't go to a Starbucks. I don't care. Just won't do it. Because I know where they spend their money and their profits and what they, espouse as values. And it's just not consistent with mine. We voted for change in November. Vote with your wallet now. It's that simple. You get to choose products. You get to choose shows, right? So choose a great coffee, Wired to Fish coffee, and know that 25% of all of their funds go to clean water initiatives and faith-based organizations. That's just, to me, that's awesome. I know that I'm doing good when I buy a product that is helping other people consistent with the values that I support. So if you go to Wired to Fish, it's the numeral 2. So it's Wired, the numeral 2, fishcoffee.com. You can try some of this amazing coffee. Now, you can either brew it like most people, or you brew it and then put it in the fridge like I do for iced coffee. That's, still coffee and still great. Wired2fishcoffee.com. Use code WECARE, one word, WECARE, all long things, no space, WECARE for 15% off. All right, guys, real quick, I want to show you something. Apple put out its list of the top podcasts of 2024. And I know you're thinking, hey, it's just November. We got another month to go. So maybe you could bump me up the list. That's why I always ask, by the way, please subscribe on all platforms. I know a lot of you watch on YouTube or Rumble. Some of you listen to Apple, but you can subscribe on every platform. It doesn't hurt you, but it actually helps us grow as a show and get more attention. So please always do that if you can. And join us 6 o'clock for the premiere. And while I'm asking it, hey, listen, I'm on a roll. So just go to SeanSpicer.com, sign up for the weekly newsletter. It's free. And I write a lot of the stuff that I make into the show. So you get some of my commentary. I've got some great pictures that I put in about behind the scenes from Election Day, from 2016, from the White House, from Mar-a-Lago. It's been great. We've got some new folks getting nominated all the time. I mentioned, I think, Linda McMahon. I work for Linda. She's a great woman, and she will be a great agent of change at the Department of Education. Howard Lutnick is going to Commerce. By the way, President Trump said that he's not doing any more rallies. If you do want to go check it out, go to frontrowjoes.movie and check out my movie about Trump rallies. It's amazing. If they really aren't going to happen again, then you're going to want to have this movie and or the DVD that you can get there. So FYI on that. A lot to talk about with the panel, though, not just about the Republicans, but about the Democrats, because you're not going to believe where they are as a party. It's insane. So keep that in mind. A massive caravan, by the way, is storming the southern border because they fear all of these stricter immigration policies are coming under Trump. Check it out. Now, I get it, guys. Trump, he sent fear. This is why it's not just what they say, right? And this is the problem to Biden. The immigrants knew, if I get in, I get all this free stuff. President Trump's made it clear, we will deport you. We will prosecute you. And that signal lets the cartels and everyone know, okay, this isn't worth the hike. They're back to being a nation of laws. And so, anyway, we've also saw not just the immigrants, but apparently the liberals are saying that they're really going to make do. And Ellen DeGeneres is now saying that she's actually going to leave the country, I guess. Hey, look, I don't care. If you want to go. I'm all for that. Feel free to just get out of here. They've moved Ellen DeGeneres and her partner, Portia Del Rossi, have moved to the UK. Great. Bye. You think I'm going to feel bad for any of these people? Go. Adios. And I'm tired of people saying they're going to do it and then not doing it. Go. If you're not proud of being an American, then I don't want you here. And you're free to go. I don't know if they think they're going to get sympathy or something, or people are going to ask them to come back. Bye, Ellen. Adios. All right. I want to tell you about another good person and bring in the panel. By the way, I've got a poll about who the Democrats think their nominee should be. It's going to blow your mind. I'm going to get the panel to react to this because it's mind-numbing. Anyway, all right. One great guy that was not on the ballot but is doing amazing things is my buddy Leo Grillo. He is so cool. He founded Delta Rescue after rescuing one dog, a Doberman. And then he said, I think I can do more. This is why I love the guy. He's like, my life's mission is to actually rescue and help abandoned, neglected, abused animals. Full stop. Like, it's not just dogs and cats. The guy's got such a big heart. So he founded Delta Rescue, and the thing is just continue to evolve. If you go to deltarescue.org, and I hope you will, just click on the website, look at the stuff that they do and how it's grown, and the personal care that Leo himself has in this mission. It's a no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter, not a place that's looking to adopt things. They bring them in, no-kill sanctuary for life. They give them all the care they need. Leo does one thing, though. He needs our help because as he expands this mission, it costs money, and he's not looking for big handouts. Right? He's looking for us to help. So if you can go to deltarescue.org, think about a contribution. And at the top of that page, you'll see the estate planning kit. It's right up there. It's one of those tabs. Just do me a favor and download it and think about it, pray on it, and say, if I'm a dog lover or a rescuer of other animals, can I help this? And again, maybe you get some tax benefits to this, that when you, in your will and estate, add them to some account that you have, some stocks, whatever, maybe in a rollover of a 401k or something, whatever it is, property. Help them continue this mission for generations. Go to deltarescue.org. Check out the estate planning kit. Thank you. All right. I'm excited to bring in the panel, all-star panel today. Bradley Devin, you might remember, he's the political editor of the Daily Signal. They did amazing work keeping us up to date. They are a leader in independent media. Natalie Winter, she's the co-host of Steve Bannon's War Room. All right. She's definitely bringing the fire today. And then Larry O'Connor, you know him. He is one of my mentees. I help him out all the time. He is the host of O'Connor and Company here in our nation's capital, WMAL. All right, let's bring in the panel. All right, guys, good to see you. I want to get to the nominees and all the stuff in Republican world and Trump world and blah, blah, blah. But there's a poll that caught my eye that I just want you guys to start with, Natalie. This is, I'll go from bottom to top. Democrats were asked by a poll from Echelon Insights. They just Democrats, not everybody, not independents, Democrats alone. Who do you want to see as your 2028 nominee? Okay, at the bottom of the list, Tim Walz, 6%. Like, I think that's got to be his friends and family because no one else wants to see Tim Walz anywhere. Pete Buttigieg, surprisingly, I actually think he's higher on the list, 6%. That's where he got. Josh Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor, 7%. I thought that was surprising to me because everyone keeps talking about how Josh Shapiro is the face of this new Democratic Party, and he's from Pennsylvania. Okay, whatever. Gavin Newsom, 8%. Natalie, I know you're sitting down, but Kamala Harris was the pick of 41% of Democrats. I don't did they see this election? Like, I don't get, I'm like, half of me is like, hey, thank God, go, run again.
No, it's absolutely insane. And look, I don't even think that Tim Walz's family or friends comprise that 6% because I think they endorsed Trump. But that aside, I think
that's a good point. That's a good point.
I think it's interesting, though, to sort of try to come to grips in terms with how the Democratic Party is going to triage, right, their 2024 loss, because it'll obviously dictate their strategy going forward. And I think you can already sort of see the mini civil war breaking out within the Democratic Party. That's always been there, but it's sort of been bubbling under the surface between the more resistance-y type activist group, NGO wing of the party, and the more establishment wing of the Democratic Party that, of course, deprived Bernie Sanders of the nomination in 2016. And they're going to do anything that they can to really prevent the framing of this loss, which is, I think, why Donald Trump has been such a transformational candidate. The idea that he ushered in a populist, sort of nonpartisan, two-party system breaking idea of conservative politics. So I don't really even think that this poll is all that legitimate, in the sense that I think you're seeing the Democratic establishment try to maintain all the power that they have. I think just another interesting number to throw out there, I believe only 32% of people self-identified as Democrats in exit polls leaving the 2024 election. So I also think that you're polling an interesting group of people too in this kind of group.
So Bradley, normally I would say this is ridiculous, right? To Natalie's point, like who did they poll? I mean, they're a great pollster, just to be clear. Echelon Insights, they're really good at what they do. But then Dan Balz from the Washington Post is out with a story, sort of the postmortem on why the Democrats lost, and the headline is "Economy and Discontent Were Too Much for Harris to Overcome," advisors say. Now he sat down with their team. This is Jen O'Malley Dillon and the other senior folks. They all got to go on what they call background, which means they get to say things, but you don't get to use their name with their quote, because I think they wanted the freedom to speak. But here's the lead of Dan's story, because this is why I'm tying it with the poll. It says senior officials with Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign say her defeat stemmed primarily from dissatisfaction among voters about the overall direction of the country and discontent over inflation and the economy, arguing that those headwinds proved too strong for Harris to overcome in her sprint to Election Day. What's missing in that? That she was a horrible, horrible candidate that couldn't communicate the basics. Yes, those were the big issues. But Bradley, the story is devoid of the reality of her as a candidate. She sucked in 2019 when she ran, and she sucked this time.
She did suck this time. And I'm not talking to you, Willie Brown. Anyway, we're going to move past that, and we're going to talk about what I've heard from center-left friends as well, which is it's just the material conditions. No, I think that's a very oversimplistic read of what's happening here with the Democratic Party. This is not, Trump didn't come to power again just because he had the economy humming in his 4 years as president of the United States. He came to power because he provided a substantive vision for America's future, a return to constitutionalism, a return of power to the people, not have it further entrenched into the deep state. And I think Natalie touched on something really important, which is that Sanders-Clinton divide that we talked about in 2016. Well, Kamala Harris is that empty suit that they can just kind of force the base back together. And so if you're thinking that it's just the material conditions, Kamala Harris is an empty suit and we can do with her what we want, and all of a sudden you're also a Democrat who is an anti-federalist and says the vice president has no power and does nothing, well then Kamala Harris deserves none of the blame for the material conditions that ultimately led to her demise. So if these are your calculations, then of course Kamala Harris is going to be your front runner heading into 2028, and I beg of them, please do it again.
Larry O'Connor, you guys at WMAL cover your audience is the nation's capital, right? Maryland, Virginia, D.C. This poll of who Democrats want for 2028, right? Kamala Harris, 41, Gavin Newsom, 8, Shapiro, 7, Buttigieg, 6, Waltz, 6. It didn't include Wes Moore of Maryland, who I would assume should get like 4. Like, say what you will, he's an impressive guy. And I'm sort of amazed. Now, I get it. It's 4 years out. But how does a guy like Wes Moore not even make the list?
Well, he's sort of out of central casting. You're right. And he's sort of made to order for how the Democratic Party is moving. But here's what you're all missing about this poll. What Democrats, actual voters, Democrats who show up and vote for Democrats, what they want is pretty much meaningless. What we've learned from Joe Biden being pushed into the ticket and Kamala Harris being pushed into the ticket, Robert Kennedy being pushed out of the party, What Democrat voters want is absolutely irrelevant to what the party will decide. So make no mistake, despite whatever this poll says, it's going to be Westmore and Pete Buttigieg in the lead by the time we actually get to the primary process. The party apparatus loves Westmore and they love Pete Buttigieg because they want to double, triple, quadruple down on LGBTQ issues. And they think that they've got Republicans and conservatives on the run on that issue because they're not reading the room.
All right. Let me ask you guys a question. I brought up, Natalie, at the beginning, this poll of the top episodes. And I think I probably stated it wrong at the beginning of the show. The top episodes of podcasts this year, right? So number one is Tucker Carlson with Callie and Casey Means. I've got Alex Clark on the show tomorrow, and we're going to focus the entire show on MAHA. It's amazing to me when you look at the top 10 episodes of of podcasts that were on Apple this year. It's like 6 of the top 10 have to do with health. And if you had asked me like 6 months ago, 4 months ago, like July, I'm not good at math, right? Whatever. July of this year, 4 months ago, I would not have said that MAHA and health would have been the dominant issue, right? 6 of the top 10 podcast episodes this year. And that's why I want to talk to Alex about this tomorrow. What do you guys make of this? You guys at the War Room are talking to people all the time. Is this something that you saw bubbling up before the polls started to show it?
Yeah, I definitely think it's springboarded off of COVID. And I think more broadly, it's sort of the critique that we have forced the Democratic Party to become the defenders of the institutions that I think so many Americans innately distrust. And I think COVID, whether it was the vaccines, the mask mandate, sort of put that conflict of interest, weird black box process on full display. And I think people really started to sort of question that. And I think the inevitable fallout was then, while it touched, all the other parts of our lives, whether it was the food that we're eating, exercise regimens. And I really think in particular, I'm so happy for you that you're having Alex Clark on the show tomorrow, because I think it's an issue that's particularly salient among young women who are otherwise sort of not politically apathetic, but just don't really think of the Republican Party as a home for them because they don't see them engaging in issues that are, necessarily impacting their daily lives. Yeah. And if you talk to any young girl, that's something, right? The health, the hormone regulation, stuff like that, that is something that is so on the front of their mind. And I think it's wonderful that RFK, Nicole Shanahan have really pushed that to the forefront.
Yeah, and if I could, I think that the COVID reaction and anger and distrust of our public health institutions over COVID is one of the most unmeasured factors in this last election. I think that it still looms very large. I think we still feel unsatisfied that Congress never held any hearings about what went wrong and what we can do better and what we should have learned from this. And Republicans, conservatives, for 20 years now, whenever healthcare is brought up as an issue, we instinctively just sort of push back on it and say, well, that's not the government's job. And it's always presented as some big new government program that we're going to tax everybody through the butt over, and the government's going to control it. And we've been right to resist that. What we've missed out on is what Natalie just referred to, what Kennedy is focusing on. That Tucker Carlson podcast, I can't tell you how many people outside the political realm in my life sent that to me, Sean.
Yep.
This is an opportunity for conservatives and Republicans to seize this issue and actually talk about health, not about government, not about policy, not about taxing and spending, but health and how we can actually be part of making us healthy again.
Bradley, the thing that's interesting about Larry's point, right? I listened to that episode with Callie and Casey Means, and I'm hoping to get them on the show soon. And Casey Means, the doctor, she's Stanford educated, like brilliant, says, hey, guess what? During all of my training, I never had a single class on nutrition. Like, the answer to everything is, here's the pill you give. We had a doctor on the morning meeting this morning. This brilliant doctor came on the show that we do live every morning at 9. And he was talking about the MAHA agenda and da-da-da-da. And I stopped and I said, Doc, let me just ask you a question. He went to Harvard. How many nutrition classes were you given? He said 0. And so I thought to myself, to Larry's point, it's one thing not to trust the public institutions post-COVID. I get it. Like when Dr. Fauci's like, I made up 6 feet. It was 5, 7. Who cares? 6 is nice, right? That I was like, oh my God, like this is insane. But then to realize that every time I go into the doctor, that they've never taken any kind of class or background on nutrition. And I'm like, I've learned more on Instagram about nutrition than you got at medical school. That to me really makes me wonder about when you get told what to do. I've always trusted the doctor, right? I go in, the doctor says, hey, look, here's the problem. Here's how we're going to fix it. I go, okay, you're a doctor. I'm not. I'll do it. And now I'm going, wait a second. All these years you've been talking to us about what we need to, the changes we need to make in our lives. And you actually never had any training in nutrition or how to solve a problem naturally, if you will, aside from just saying, oh, here's the pill for that. Do you guys as an independent media outlet at the Daily Signal, Bradley, is this something that you guys are now like looking into more, or because I also wonder how many politicians, through no fault of their own, I mean, in all honesty, just say, well, I talked to this doctor and they said X, and they're now realizing, wow, all the stuff that we've been doing legislating on is based off people who have no understanding of this issue.
Yeah, it's not just the public institutions. It's also the private institutions.
Right.
It's how the private and public institutions work together, coordinate for the sake of their bottom line, and for the political side for the sake of their own power. You can see this populist resurgence throughout the past 10 years in our politics mirrors the type of populist resurgence that occurred in the early 20th century and at the end of the 19th century, right? This is the era of Teddy Roosevelt. It wasn't just that Washington's in the way, it's that corporations were assuming powers of government, essentially, and getting in the way as well. So when you have all these different types of labor reforms, public health was a major factor in that. Now, the public health considerations back then were smog or this, that, and the other thing, actual physical safety in the workplace. And today, it's more of a broad-based consumption health concern that the American people have. And so when you see how Washington, when it inserts itself into these private institutions, it actually alienates the capacity for good doctors, for unorthodox health procedures, unorthodox health advice to actually come to the fore, right? This is this type of coordination that actually stifles innovation. You hear this a lot from the libertarian right. Well, we need to keep health spending X high because we need to make sure that those drugs keep getting better and better and better. And it's like, no, actually, what you need to do is you need to actually re-engage the system. You need to actually break down these massive oligopolies that control our health system in order to have the innovation that we'd all like to see.
Yeah.
So that's a very conservative principle. It's not anti-free market. It's pro-fair market. And the only way to have a free market is to have a fair one.
That's right. Conservatives used to say, the measure of success with Medicare and unemployment is how many people won't need it anymore in our economy. Well, how about doing that with healthcare? The measure of success with pharmaceuticals is you don't need to take any pills anymore. You've actually gotten healthy and you don't need them. How about we take that approach?
Yeah, it's actually funny because the goal, as I've learned so much in the last even year, but it's like the goal is to get these drugs on what they call the schedule, right? So what you want to do is to make sure that they become approved so that Medicaid, the VA, everyone can prescribe them. And that's why, when they talk about the price of drugs, what the pharma answer is? Oh, just add it to the schedule because then it brings down the cost is still the same. They're billing the government, but the cost to you, because it's been added, it is such a racket what happens. But I do want to turn the page because we'll talk extensively about this with Alex tomorrow. Natalie, I want to get into the nominees, but I want to do it in a very different way. I'm surprised. Everyone's talking Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, and we could talk about them. But here's the thing that I find fascinating, and I want to get your opinion on this because of all the guests that the War Room has on. Are you surprised who hasn't gotten a job yet? I mean, I look and I go, where's Rick Grinnell's nomination? Where's Chad Wolf? Where's Robert Wilkie? Where's Ben Carson's official announcement? What's going on with Peter Navarro? Like all these people, and I'm like, I get where all the noise is, like who got appointed and how bad they are, whatever, from the media. But I'm also like, where are the other folks that have been kind of pretty committed and have spent the last 4 years kind of making sure that the trenches were dug, ready to get back into the work?
Yeah, I mean, we're all about flooding the zone, as Steve infamously said on the War Room. So we definitely advocate pushing through and, announcing all the nominees that you can. So the Senate, whoever, doesn't have time to even understand what's just hit them, right? The blowtorch that is Matt Gaetz to the DOJ. In terms of some of the names that you rattled off, I know Navarro is in talks. I think the announcement should be relatively soon on exactly what capacity he'll be assisting, whether it's an economic council or Treasury more broadly. In that capacity, we've obviously been pushing for Kash Patel pretty heavily with FBI director. But no, I think there's a host of names. I don't necessarily think it means they're not getting positions. I think it's just sort of a waiting game, but I definitely think it's worth, like I said, flooding the zone to the point that, I think you already see a lot of these Senate Democrats sort of preparing and trying to hold, at least before Republicans take the majority, sort of their counter hearings and trying to sort of already in their, capacity flood the zone with, negative stories, obviously the ethics reports and all of that shenanigans, or maybe President Trump will call it skullduggery going on, trying to smear these nominees. But I do think one very, very powerful sign that has come out through amidst this process is that despite all these mainstream media attacks and legal and lawfare smears, President Trump is standing by all of his nominees.
Bradley, as the media guy, granted you're the independent media guy, I get asked a lot, you name it, NBC, political, like they call it, what about the qualifications? And I said, okay, can we just talk about the qualifications? Because I get it. You guys want to talk about how qualified they are. And I said, well, listen, let's just talk about this. I mean, Pete Hegseth, let's see, 2 Bronze Stars, deployed to Gitmo, Iraq, Afghanistan, ran a VSO, Veteran Service Organization, Concerned Veterans for America. Is that not qualified? And I go, let me just look at the bar that we're up against. Let's see. In the Biden administration, Dennis McDonough ran the VA. He's not a veteran, never served in the military, never worked for a veteran service organization, has no experience in healthcare or mortgage lending, the 2 biggest services that the VA does. Javier Becerra, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, not a doctor. He's actually a lawyer. He was the Attorney General of California, so I guess he sued people in healthcare, but has no background in healthcare. Jared Bernstein, the chairman of the Economic Council of Economic Advisors, is not an economist, but his degree is actually in music, so that's helpful. Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, has no transportation background. As I wrote in my book, Radical Nation, he oversaw 63 buses as mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And when he was nominated, President Biden said, we're excited to have the first LGBTQ person to run a department, and he's really young. That apparently was his qualification. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I just find it funny that suddenly everybody's found Jesus when it comes to qualifications, but we didn't seem to worry about that, Bradley. Is that odd to you?
Well, I mean, Pete Hegseth has never lost a war. I think Lloyd Austin has he's lost multiple wars. So listen, bad experience is not better than no experience at all. And when you're in an executive position appointed by the president, your number one qualification is the will to do what the American people has ordered you to do, and that is effectuate the president's agenda. Going back to what Natalie said real quick, Sean, I can't help but notice a headline in The Hill today as Hegseth makes his rounds around Capitol Hill saying that senators, despite the sexual assault allegations, are coming to Pete Hegseth's aid, saying, this was thoroughly investigated and never prosecuted. But at the same time, Senate Republicans aren't extending that to Matt Gaetz. Why aren't they? Well, the reason that they're not extending it to Matt Gaetz is because the legislature has been complicit in forking over power to the administrative state. And Matt Gaetz is their number one threat to blow it up. They're not extending Matt Gaetz that courtesy because they're still mad that he sowed quote-unquote chaos within Republican ranks by getting rid of Kevin McCarthy, who consistently sided with Democrats on the most important issues the country faced during the Biden administration. And so my question for the Senate is, why aren't you extending the same courtesy that you're extending Hegseth to Matt Gaetz? Because Matt Gaetz is actually the one with the political will. From the appointees that I've seen, he is the one who has the most political will to effectuate the president's agenda in the most important role, which is oversight of the DOJ and the FBI. The Biden DOJ didn't prosecute Matt Gaetz. Is the Biden DOJ shy about going after political opponents? No, of course not. I mean, this whole qualification game is BS. The reason that Pete Mayor Pete still has a job despite having a failed presidential campaign, like 7 electric chargers, and $1 zillion out the doors because what? He's loyal to the Biden administration agenda, a radical climate change agenda that wants to change the way we do transportation in the United States, that wants to lock you in your pod and make sure you don't have a diesel truck. That's why he still has a job.
Sean, it's if you think about it, the Biden cabinet is the greatest gift the Trump transition team ever had. From Buttigieg at Transportation, Becerra, Health and Human Services, Mayorkas at DHS, and let's not forget Granholm, that energy expert who's now running the Department of Energy. Absolute disaster. But there's another side of that coin. Look at the handful of people who you could argue had the perfect resumes and perfect credentials to run their departments. Merrick Garland at DOJ, Janet Yellen at Treasury, and Antony Blinken at State. Foggy Bottom is a disaster. The world is on fire thanks to Antony Blinken's horrible diplomacy. Look at Janet Yellen and inflation and Treasury. She's never been able to communicate a clear message. And please, the Justice Department, sadly, is in such bad shape and has lost so much trust with the American people. Merrick Garland, frankly, I think the man should be indicted for some of the things that he's done. So Biden has done everything that he possibly can to take all of those weapons out from the confirmation hearings for Trump's cabinet. They're only going to be able to go after them personally.
That may be the most brilliant observation you've ever made. I literally wrote it down as you said it because I thought to myself, you know what, I'll give you credit. I had not gone in that direction, Larry O'Connor.
Sean, you've stolen so many of my ideas and talking points over the years that I appreciate you at least acknowledging this one that you're going to credit me for. Thank you for that.
Anyway, I was surprised by that comment, but just so you guys know, I am not surprised anymore if the power goes out because I have a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in my house. A lot of things surprise people in Washington, but don't be surprised. Actually, last night, just as a side note, the power here in our nation's capital or around it, at least here in Virginia, went out for a little while. I don't have to worry because I have a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in my house. It powers the most powerful things, refrigerator, tablets, TVs, you name it. It's portable. You can bring it in the house. You don't have to be outside trying to set this thing up or worried about gas, fumes, running to the gas station. It runs off a free solar panel that comes with it. How awesome is that? So if you don't want to be caught by surprise, like a lot of Republicans were by the choice of Matt Gaetz, then get a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in your house. Perfect for Christmas, by the way. If you've got a friend or a neighbor that you worry about, get them one of these. If you live in a rural community where you worry about getting to a gas station, whether it'll be open or not, or whether the credit card machine will work because of an electrical grid hit, get one now. They sell out all the time. So if you're going to wait for, the holidays, it's going to be too late. Get it now. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. The numeral 4, patriots.com/Spicer, and you get the free solar panel with it so you don't have to worry about getting gas. All right. Let's get back to this discussion. I want to say one of the things that I find intriguing, Natalie, and I tweeted this out a while ago. When Marco Rubio, Larry brought up Foggy Bottom, which is very Beltway speak for the State Department, for people who don't know. I mean, as a swamp creature, that's where he comes from. But when it comes to the State Department, Rubio gets picked. There's a vacancy now. Now you've got Ron DeSantis able to pick somebody. Now, I said when this happened, he's basically got 3 choices, right? He could step down as governor and Jeanette Nunes becomes governor and appoints him. And I think that DeSantis needs somewhere to go because he's term limited. 2, he appoints a caretaker like his current chief of staff. Or 3, he appoints a Trump. Don, Laura, they take the seat. They become immediately not just the senator, but a potential running mate for J.D. Vance in 2028. I know this is inside baseball with Florida, but it's got massive national political implications. What do you think is the smart move? Because I guess my view is DeSantis has got to be very careful about his future with this pick.
I think the right move is if one of the Trump family members wants it. I think that they should get it. I think particularly Laura Trump. I think her heading the RNC. I think we saw a really robust and successful election integrity operation go on this election cycle. Obviously, they weren't able to steal it. And I think that that's an issue that's extremely compelling and I think of primary concern for much of the Republican base. So I think there's sort of a natural affinity there. But at the end of the day, I think it, comes down to whether or not Laura Laura Trump or Don Jr. or Eric Trump or whomever may want the case. I hope it certainly doesn't start a, civil war kind of 2024 primary style, Trump camp versus DeSantis camp, because I don't think that infighting is worth anything. And I will just add one quick note on the Rubio appointment to State Department. I would say of all the nominees, that's the one that I'm probably most, I would say, disheartened by, particularly because I think the State Department is so crucial for fighting the global censorship kind of war campaign. And I think you need someone who is not establishment and is willing to look down some of the most entrenched bureaucratic types, not just domestically, but globally too, and to tell them that we are not going to stand for these covert, clandestine information warfare operations that the American people hate and view as such an affront to the First Amendment.
I do wonder if Laura Trump ends up in that seat, Bradley. I mean, I think to myself, because there is a nice little progression that happens, right? Suddenly JD runs, he needs a running mate. You got someone from Florida, you got a Trump, you continue. I mean, it does. It's like, that Tetris game. The pieces all fit together nicely.
Yeah. Here's the weird thing about big red state politics is it doesn't work as a singular unit. You can see this most clearly in Texas, where Abbott and Paxton and the Cornyn world are all at each other's throats. Florida's solidly red now, and what do you see emerging in this solidly red state? A series of red state fiefdoms. You have kind of the DeSantis camp, as Natalie said. Of course, you have the Southern White House, Mar-a-Lago, dictating a lot of what goes on in the state of Florida. But then you also have, the Scott faction and the Rubio faction. And all of these factions working together is rare. But with the mandate that President Trump just got, it might be smart for DeSantis to signal not only a willingness to work with the other factions, right? Because the Rubio faction's kind of moving into the State Department. DeSantis, his faction could be rendered powerless in 2026 when he terms out. If DeSantis goes forward with a Trump pick, it could kind of unite that. I guess it's kind of a little Game of Thronesy. It could unite the kingdom behind this pick in Laura Trump or Don Jr. I do think that it's possible DeSantis goes forward with appointing his own wife, Casey DeSantis, as a placeholder for him to potentially come in.
Oh, whoa. Mind blown.
Yeah,
I
didn't see that coming.
No.
I think
Bradley with the corner shot coming in. Boom.
I think it's completely possible. I think it's within the realm of possibilities. And DeSantis knows that his wife is one of his most powerful political allies. And if he's worried about maybe some of his interests not being heard in Washington, he might send his own wife up there. I still think that Donald Trump Jr. might be best for the coalition in Florida moving forward, or a Laura Trump or whatever. But it could get pretty spicy. And let's not forget, Ohio has the same problem now.
Yeah.
Bradley's onto something here in that, your assumption here, Sean, that DeSantis might nominate Laura Trump so that it helps J.D. Vance, that assumes that DeSantis has given up running for president in 28. If he still wants to run for president in 28, why in the hell would he do something to help J.D.
No,
Vance?
I agree with you. But I also, so I think what you're touching on, Larry, is what I've been trying to figure out myself.
Yeah.
How does he do the dance where he appoints somebody that keeps MAGA world happy?
Right.
So keeps his options open, because he doesn't need to start the fight right now. He's got 2 years to go, and then he needs to be able to stay relevant. And if he pisses off Trump team again, I think you're on to something that I think is important.
This is his first move. Basically, what we're about to hear from Ron DeSantis about who the new senator, the appointed senator from Florida is his first move for 28. So read whatever he does through that prism. Unless Ron DeSantis decides, you know what, I had my shot, it didn't work, I'm a young man, maybe I'll just go to the Senate and I'll be a senator from Florida for a couple of terms, and then I can regroup and maybe run, when things are different and we're not living in Donald Trump's world. That might be what he ends up doing.
I think you're right, though, that I don't like this caretaker thing in Florida for the reasons that Bradley was articulating. If they put a caretaker in, then there's going to be a primary. That's the whole deal. You agree that you won't run. We'll make you a U.S. senator, and you have to leave that's the handshake agreement that they make. I think that you end up having a bloodbath on the right, kind of for the same reason that these warring issues kind of start to come out. I want somebody that actually will use the 2 years to be ready to run, because not everyone has Rick Scott's money. So that's kind of what I think in this. All right, I want to, for a reason that I'm going to explain. Well, here's the last thing I want to do before winners and losers. There's a great op-ed right out today in the Wall Street Journal from Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk talking about this DOGE thing. And I got to tell you, I'm super impressed with it. And the reason why is that it's so easy to say, oh, we're going to cut government spending and we're just going to get waste. These guys attacked the problem basically saying, hey, swamp, I know you. I know what you're going to try to do. We've thought about you. We know how we're going to get around you. We know how we're going to be effective. And it's, to me, the way they lay out the problems with our current government and how much waste and inefficiency and duplicity exists is excellent. And I felt like for a while I was waiting to see, I mean, you mentioned the first move from DeSantis, but Natalie, this to me, this effort to bring efficiency to government and effectiveness, I think is really real.
Yeah, I mean, look, back in 2016, right, the turning point slogan was big government sucks. And if you think about how much the world has evolved since then, it's not just big government, right? It's big food, it's the military industrial complex, it's, big government weaponization, right? All the things that I'm sure independently everyone who's sitting on this panel has kind of sort of faced firsthand. And I think that DOGE, which I'm also, I guess, worth pointing out that I believe Marjorie Taylor Greene is now going to be chairing a congressional subcommittee working kind of hand in hand with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, but it represents, I think, the concept, the idea, which I think sort of gets back to even more broadly the discussion that we were having about the idea of these, nominees not being qualified. They were qualified if the goal was to destroy the United States of America, right? If they were dealing not necessarily questions of incompetence versus intentional destruction of this country. And I think that is what that DOGE op-ed and more precisely the mindset of Vivek and Elon represent, which is the idea that this isn't just an issue that the government is needlessly doling out trillions of dollars to address problems. Yeah, the waste, fraud, and abuse is part of it. But it's also a systemic multi-trillion-dollar weaponization of the federal government against the American people. And that's what they're going after, right? The wokeness, the waste, fraud, and abuse stuff, that's important. But that's sort of the sideshow. That's the shiny toy. They understand, I think, with an inside baseball perspective, how the levers of power have really been turned on the American people.
Rob, Bradley, I'm sorry, how they sell this matters. Like, I think if they come out like they did in the op-ed and give the American people a sense that, hey, your tax dollars are being wasted, to Natalie said, your government is weaponized, we're going to fix this, and here are 5 examples that make sense to every American, they're going to win. If they come out and sort of talk in esoteric ways, I think they're going to lose us real quick.
Yeah, and I think the other error that they could make is being too detailed too quickly. Don't reveal everything in your hand. Yeah. Make sure that you go after him like Trump went after ICE. Remember, everyone was like, Trump has no plan to destroy ICE. Well, Trump got in there and he did it quickly. Why? Because he didn't show the bureaucracy too much so that the bureaucracy could work against him in that field. One thing that I think is interesting about the DOGE committee is I fielded this question from a friend who said, maybe efficiency isn't the right principle. And my stance is, no, I think actually efficiency is the right principle. His argument was, well, if we make government more efficient, then they will more efficiently censor us, for example. I said, no, actually, part of efficiency is ensuring that a system does what it is meant to do. A system that does not fulfill its purpose is inherently not an efficient system. And Natalie laid out that our system of government is not meant to have as she said, a multi-trillion-dollar effort to censor the American people. That's not part of efficiency, right? They're not going to be working to make that more efficient. It actually goes back to first principles of constitutionalism, of self-government, of the ability for our people, the American people, to decide their own future and have their politicians reflect that and build the bridges, build the infrastructure needed to usher in this golden age that we've been talking about. So efficiency, I think, is the right principle. It's just making sure that we always keep in context that an efficient system is one that is true to itself. And the American system right now is not true to what the founders thought.
Larry, can I? Yeah. We always end Thursdays, and we're running short on time with winners and losers for the week. Who do you think has won the week? Who do you think has lost the week?
Well, I'll tell you, it actually tags into the last topic that we just hit on, because I think the winner is the American people, because Russ Vought was just named the director of OMB.
Yes,
he's the missing cog here for the DOGE committee. Everything that Musk and Ramaswamy do will be filtered through OMB. Russ Vought has been there. He's the only carryover from the last term. He already knows how OMB works, which is one of the huge roadblocks for new directors of OMB. He's going to hit the ground running, and he will be ruthless. So I think that's a great.
We'll have to do a whole show on that. This is, if you want to know what really makes Washington work, it's OMB. Larry's right. Who's the loser, Larry? We got
the loser of the week is our friends Joe and Mika and Rachel Maddow and everyone over there on MSNBC, because Comcast is selling them off.
You're getting
destroying the NBC News brand. It's fabulous.
Scary. We're thinking the same way. Bradley, who do you got? Winner and loser, quick.
Winner, Trump dance. It's everywhere, folks.
Let me show this. I'm going to put this on the program. Everyone's doing the Trump dance. I'm glad you brought that up. Oh, my God.
Everybody's doing it. Loser, I hate to say it, Sean. Makes me sad. I wish him a happy recovery. Jay Leno.
Jay Leno is all bruised up. The left side of his face is black and blue. His eye is swollen shut. And look at his injured wrist.
Don't expect me to believe that you fell down a hill at the Hampton Inn in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Sir, you're too beat up. We can help you out, Jay Leno. Okay. Let me know what we need to do.
Blink twice, Jay, and we'll know that you need it.
I didn't twice now. Bradley with the outside the box. I didn't see this coming thing. All right, Natalie Winters, land the plane.
I guess I'll be basic. The winner is still President Donald J. Trump. He still enjoys his massive mandate. And I'd say the loser, I was going to say MSNBC, but I guess we'll go with their twin sister, and that is the Resistance 2.0, which I think is struggling to lift off the ground.
All right. I think a lot of, we've danced around this a little bit. Another great pick of President Trump as my winner. Free speech and big tech is because of the appointment of Brendan Carr as the chairman of the FCC. This is huge for us, for the movement, and so I'm excited about that. He is a winner for free speech, for cracking down on big tech and their censorship. The loser of the week, and I'm going to expand this because I did have, it's not just MSNBC and Comcast spinning them off, and therefore Mika and Joe also being losers, but it's also the cuts at the Washington Post, CNN talking about slashing salaries. The big media, the people that got it wrong are all, I mean, by the way, I'll show this video now real quick. Sunny Hostin, her hostage video on The View. Take a look at this.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding, further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
I mean, hey, Siri, what does a hostage video look like? That's what it looks like, folks. But yeah, it is amazing. The media lost big this week. Anyway, guys, amazing panel. Thanks for staying with us and covering all this. Yeah. All right, Natalie, come on.
Come on, Natalie.
There we go. All right, guys, we got a big show tomorrow. As I mentioned, Alex Clark has come here. She is on the forefront of the MAHA movement. She was MAHA before MAHA was cool. We're going to break down all these efforts, the nominees, et cetera, on the effort to make America healthy again. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of interesting things I'm excited to get involved in. And then next week, some big guests from, well, let's just call it transition world. We've got you covered. Tomorrow, again, Alex Clark, big show. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for tuning in. Sign up for my Substack, SeanSpicer.com. That's free newsletter. You get to, if you sign up today, you get tomorrow's, right? That's awesome. See you back here tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.